Hi, I'm Dr. Sapphire, a medical doctor who doubles as an email marketing expert. In here, I take you behind the scenes of failed and successful email marketing campaigns. You get to see what these amazing individuals have tried that worked and didn't work in email marketing. If you've been curious and like me, you want to know what other people out there are really doing in email marketing, then join me as I go behind the scenes. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Email Marketing Experiment. Today, I am super excited because it's not every day we have the email marketing queen in the house. We have the amazing Shannon Vondy, Mrs. Vondy, as she's probably known by. And I'm super excited to have you here. Welcome to the podcast, Shannon.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me and that very kind intro.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, you are the queen of email marketing, and I followed your journey for a while now. And I love the way you always give us it's just like email is like a part of you. And it's like, oh, this is how I think everything just comes back to email. And I love it. The consistency is 100%.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much. I'm glad that it's resonating. You never know sometimes when you say these things. Do I just sound like a crazy person? But I'm glad people like it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, before we go into the whole email talk, let's get to hear a bit about you. I mean, I have been on your email list for a while, so I know more than bits and pieces, and I followed you on Instagram and Threads. But I would love my audience to get to know you, meet you, and just get to meet these email marketing strategies that's doing amazing things in the industry. So tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So I have been into email since I was a wedding photographer for about 10 years. And then 2020 hit. And of course, we were going to have our best year ever. And then we basically almost lost our business in a few months because of everything that went on in 2020, as I'm sure we all are familiar. I don't need to remind you. But at that point, I had never really used email. I'd heard it was amazing. And then I thought, you know what? Let me try this again. I have nothing to lose. Let me give this a go. I actually learned a little bit more about email at that point. I didn't really listen to a lot of the things I had been told before. I mean, I had listened to them, but they didn't work for me. So I tried some of the things I hadn't been taught. And that's when I sent one email and I made $2,600. And I thought, oh, this is why everyone has been saying you need an email list. You need to use email. I was hooked from then on. So I started using it more and more, and I saw some really great success. I actually wound up making $13,000 in 1 year from email. And I was like, okay, how come nobody's teaching this? And then I realized I should be the person teaching this. So here I am.
I mean, it's the O for me. It's like, oh, this is what everybody's talking about. Like, you were so shocked. You didn't
I
see
was
something.
beyond shocked. It's like, oh my gosh, this actually works.
And I'm just curious, like, you were doing wedding photography, but you had an email list.
Yeah, so I had an email list, but I really only kind of sent occasionally when I wanted something, right? Like I would say, oh, I'm filling sessions or I have prints for sale or something like that. And I kept wondering, like, this must not work. Like, I legit thought email must not work for photographers because I didn't see results from that, right? Like, because I was only emailing them when I wanted something. I wish I could find these old emails. I'll have to go see if I can. But I literally sounded like a robot. They probably were like, this is an automated email. Like, why would I buy from this? This is so weird. So people were probably just completely disregarding it, thinking it was just an automation and not, I didn't sound anything like me. And that's literally the thing I did different was I just started talking like myself. And then now I see results with email constantly. So it really is that easy.
Okay. I love this doesn't work to shock to I should be teaching this. It's such an amazing
Full circle.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, there are a lot of interesting things about you out there. One of it is the fact that you're doing wedding photography, you're doing emails, you have like 2 rescue huskies. But I think 2 things I really find interesting is the fact that I know you do cooking/baking, but it's really the baking part because I used to, bake before. I used to bake like for people. Like I had a baking business back when I was still in medical school before it's just kind of dwindled down and then email came up there, that kind of thing. So I'm curious, I've seen some of your baking pictures, but what's like your favorite thing to bake?
Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, I didn't know you did baking too. How fun. Now I want to know your favorite thing to bake. But I love cookies. I love making cookies. It's just my thing. Like Mrs. Vondy's cookies is kind of a trademark thing around here. My niece is obsessed with them. But yeah, so that's my favorite. What's your favorite?
No, if I had to pick one thing, maybe fruitcake. I
Ooh,
really love a properly done fruitcake.
I've never made a
But when
fruitcake. We'll have to swap.
But I think when it comes to baking, beyond just baking, I think one of the things that I really love is like trying out new recipes. Like just trying it and saying, "Oh, wow, this came out like this," or you add something extra that wasn't in it, and it's like, "Okay, I like this." So just like the
Yep.
whole experimentation, and then of course like the design, buttercream. I'm not much of a fondant person, but buttercream, you swirl, you do the leaves. Oh, it's quite therapeutic.
I love it. I know. See, it's so funny. I'm not the decorator. I'm like, I love that people do it. I love it. It's just like mine are rustic and like nothing's perfect. I'm not the decorator. Unless it's email, then I like decorating emails, but not cookies.
Definitely, definitely. That's so amazing. Now, you sent us an email, I think either earlier this week or last week. You had told us that you had this big news coming, and it was anything but what I expected. So, Mrs. Vondy actually sent us, and you can be part of us by joining her email list, by the way, an email letting us know that she was doing something huge. And she literally said they were packing up and moving to, I think it's Spain.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the first question that came to my mind is, what's going to happen to the dogs?
I think that's everyone's first question. They're coming. They are coming. It's not going to be cheap, but they're coming.
How do you feel about, I mean, it's such an amazing thing, but how do you feel about it? Like finally being able to do this huge thing that you've been planning that involves a lot of, I mean, new people, new experiences.
Yeah, it's honestly very surreal still. I think I'm not 100% like realizing it's actually still happening. But yeah, we've been working on this for like a year and a half and now actually telling everyone it is for sure happening. Because we weren't sure there for a while. It's a really complicated process. So you just have to go through a bunch of hoops. But yeah, so and I mean we're still not to the finish line. Things could change, but it's looking good. So it should be good. Honestly, I don't think it's fully sunk in, but I'm really excited. The main reasons we're doing it is, and it's really exciting that, like, honestly, email has opened this door to me to be able to live this kind of life. Because as a photographer, there was no way I could leave where my client base was easily. I mean, I could, but then you got to rebuild your entire client base. Whereas I can just move my email business with me anywhere. And like that's what's so cool about using email in your business is that it can just like move with you. So I have to be really thankful for that. Email has literally changed my entire life. I always say that like I sent one email and it changed my entire life. But yeah, so I mean, the other big reasons we really want to do it is to travel more. I really am excited to be in another part of the world that I can, now it takes us so long from where we are in America to like go anywhere. And now I'll be a train or a really quick plane ride away from like some of the places I've dreamed of going my entire life. So I'm really excited for that.
All right. So let's come to email. Let's come to email, right? First of all, we're going to take a confession before we go into your experiment. Now, we want to know what is your biggest, worst, cringiest, maybe something that made you want to hide under the rock. But what's like your biggest email marketing mistake? Something that made you like really think about your life or question your abilities?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, mine is probably, well, first of all, I think that's kind of actually one of my favorite things about email is that you can really have a lot of flexibility to do experimenting and try different things. And at the end of the day, it is just an email. Like literally, it's just an email. So like if you upset someone or do something like, you wish you hadn't or you want to change it or whatever, it's just an email. You know what I mean? Like, it's really just not that big of a deal. Like, if people are getting bent out of shape about it, I'm like, you probably have something else going on in your life if you're freaking out over a little teeny piece of electronic. thing in your inbox, or like on your phone. So that's one thing I do love about email is that you do have that flexibility of like at the end of the day, you're a doctor, you're literally saving lives, like you're doing bigger things. But I would say probably just not understanding how to use it and not using it or learning how to use it and making the time to learn how to use it probably cost me over $100,000 in my photography business over the years, right? Like, because I just didn't use it. So I could have been making so much more money regularly if I had just learned how to set up systems and not sound like a robot in my emails and actually made some money and had a little bit more time freedom too. I worked so hard for so many years and I probably didn't have to work that hard.
Okay, okay. Well, that's definitely interesting. That's definitely interesting. All right. So, you helped these particular clients set up a back end system that generated like $14,000 in 2 weeks. Now, I know that everybody wants to make money with emails, 36x for every $1 spent and all of those things, but not everybody is able to get to that point, right? So I'm just curious, like, tell us a bit about this client you were working with just for context.
So I had a client I was working with full time. Well, maybe not full time so much as I was just working with her. I was in her business. She was one of my done for you clients, I should say, when I say full time. But we basically realized that she has a seasonal business. So she does accounting, bookkeeping, that kind of stuff. And she gets really busy certain times a year. And we were looking at when people are booking, when they're not. And we realized right after they finish doing services with her that we should actually be sending them a campaign to rebook them for the following year because it's one of those things that happens over and over. But this could happen in literally any business. You just have to find, I call this a money making funnel. You just literally have to find it in your business and every business has one. It's just finding it. So for her, we realized, okay, so if we email these people, they just had a great experience. They just finished their thing. They're like excited. Like, let's just secure them for the next year and they get to secure her too, right? So they know they're going to be taken care of. So we just set up a little email system to warm them into getting rebooking for the next year. And this secured $14,000 for her in 2 weeks. She was on vacation. She wasn't even like at her computer. And luckily she had all the systems set up in her back end and we just had it running and it just basically captured everyone. And it was pretty magical, honestly. I was like, there we go. Easy peasy. And she can just use it over and over and over again.
I think what I love about this is how simple it sounds like, oh, we just identified that this happened and so we did this and the results, $14,000, just like that. Because some people might find it's like, what do you mean you just identified something? So was there a problem or were you just, being the strategist that you were and it's like, how can we, do more with email? How did you get to the point that you realized that you could just do this thing and, book ahead?
Yeah, so I've been in her business several years. So I think in this case, I was seeing like, oh, you're getting kind of scrambling later in the year. And I'm like thinking about client experience. And when they're the happiest is right after they've like finished something, right? So like they've had a great experience. They're happy. It's like, yeah, of course I want to do that again next year. It was so easy, all of that. So it's fresh in their mind. So I realized what they had been doing before was hitting their clients later in the year. Whereas I was like, what if we hit them immediately after they're done working with you? So I basically just kind of identified that. But you could easily identify this in your business as well, of just kind of thinking about, again, that client journey they're taking and where can we hit them in a spot that's the optimal spot for them to want to take action. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I like the fact that because you had been in her business, like you were not just thinking from where you were, but also looking forward and then willing to move things around to see what it could get. Now, what I'm thinking is, so you said you identified this and, these people just had a very great experience. And so you want to create like an email sequence. So was it like an automated sequence or just like a series of emails that were not necessarily on autopilot?
The first round that we ran it was I guess we did technically put it, I'm like trying to remember. I think we did technically put it into an automation and put them through it once they had finished their services with her that year. but you could do it either way, honestly. So I think the first time we just kind of sent them as emails and then we built it into a funnel. But I actually think I might have built it into the funnel from the get go. But that was only because I was in her business for quite some time. So I kind of knew the best way to do it in her business. But if you are testing something, like if this is something you're like, oh, I wonder if this would work for me, you could absolutely test it with just some emails first. And then if it does well, yeah, just put them into a funnel or a flow and have that run in your background anytime. In fact, that's probably what I would recommend if you're still testing something to make sure it works. Like I said, in this case, I kind of knew having it set up as an automation was going to be key because I knew she was going to be out of town. We didn't want to have to monitor stuff, and we could put people into it as they finish stuff. So it was much easier to set up that way. But again, you could absolutely do it either way, depending on what you're doing and what your goals are.
Yeah, and I think that that totally makes sense. Now, I'm just wondering, I want us to look into this funnel that you set up, right? I like that we've created context around it, the kind of product or offer the person has, and then what it is like she has going on. So I'm just looking at it's like how many emails are we looking at, and how were we spacing the emails in the sequence or as a series?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times we kind of have to, when we're thinking about a client journey, we have to think about like where the audience is starting. So if they're cold, we're obviously going to need more conversation, more touch points to get them to where we want to get them. Right. So when I'm building a funnel, I always think of, okay, what's the goal? That's the very first thing I need to identify. What do we want to happen after said emails, right? So, okay, we identified we want them to re-enroll the next year. And then we knew, then I'll go to the top of it and think, okay, where are they coming in from? So these people weren't cold. So I knew that they just worked with her. They just had an experience. They've already paid her before. So that's honestly great for anyone. If you've had people that have paid you before, most times when I find money making funnel is from people who have already paid. So if they've already paid you, they're warm. So I knew they were warm leads. And so I knew we probably didn't need that many touch points. They really just needed to know it was available and to be reminded to enroll in a certain period of time. So basically, we only sent, I think it was 4 emails over 2 weeks. So I think it was roughly breaks down to 2 a week. And we secured, again, I'd have to look at how many people, but I think only 100 people ish went through it. Maybe 75 to 100 went through it. And it was 14,000. I don't know her rate. So I'd have to like do the math to figure out exactly how many people that was. But it wasn't really that many people because they were the perfect fit for this funnel. And that's why I always find it so funny, and maybe you do too, of like when people, you see those like email quote unquote gurus out there who are like, you have to have over, only 2% of your list will convert and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I think that's really old school thinking. Yeah, it's true mathematically, but I think I much rather have a list of really hot leads that are specifically for the offer or whatever it is we're putting them into and giving them what they want in emails or however you want to take them through that journey. And you're going to see much better results than trying to grow this list of just like thousands and thousands of people that may or may not even be interested in what you have. You're just trying to hit a certain number. So I always like to really focus on the goal and the people for that goal rather than mass numbers.
I think like a lot of us when we're learning and stuff, it always seems to come back to the maths because you're doing like these calculations to get to this place and all of that. So we all have that like background knowledge. But you actually see that as you do it with experience, like it may not always follow like that particular pattern. And I really love this thing you just said because I think I was teaching a class the other day and I told them that one thing I love about email marketing is the fact that you can send the right message to the right person at the right time. And this is literally what just happened here. So you have the main list, then you have these people that are super qualified for this. And the beauty of email marketing is the fact that you could literally pick them out and take them through the process and have them achieve the goal that you set out for them. And I think that that's like just so awesome when it comes to email marketing and what you did. I'm thinking that you sent just 4 emails. I'm like, okay, okay, interesting, interesting. But it just works. It just works. And I think it just boils down to really understanding your people and, being able to identify that moment was really key in all of these because I was expecting, okay, maybe 2 weeks, maybe they sent over 7 emails or, but when you say 4, I'm like, Okay. Now, there was something you said. You said you sent a number of emails to them within a certain time. So were you using a maybe a special offer? So what I'm just thinking is, you know that they can still book this particular service later down the year, like the time they would usually reach out to them. They mustn't book it now. But what was it that you did to ensure that they booked within the 2 weeks instead of like later?
Yeah, super. You're very good at this, by the way, of breaking it down in such a good way for people to learn this. I'm always like such an intuitive person. It's hard for me to sometimes see it the way you're seeing it. So I love that you're thinking of it this way. But yeah, exactly. So we used urgency as far as like time, right? So we said you're going to secure your space for next year so that you know you have a space and we're not full and we can't take you. So that was something we mentioned. And then I think we did offer a mini like price break. I don't think it was like a ton, but I think it was like I don't even know, but I want to say it was like 10 or 15% off of the next year if they went forward because they were a past client. So we kind of framed it that way like, ooh, because we loved working with you so much, we want to do it again. Like, here's a little bit of a perk for you to get inside. And I mean, again, I always am hesitant to share about discounting prices because, there's a lot of thoughts around discounting price. But I think you can do it if you want to, or you can run it like a promotion, right? So you could either do a discount, and if that feels weird to you, you don't want to discount your price, you could also offer other things, right? Like I think they might have offered this to, I don't remember if it was with this particular offer. I think we just did the price break and the urgency of time and saying like they had to do it within 2 weeks to get that price break or something like that. But you could also run like a promotion. So I think they have done this in the past that they'll give like a free tax call or something like that with it if they book instead of doing a discount. So again, if a discount feels really sticky to you, if that's something that you're just like, I don't feel good about that, you could also throw in a bonus or something like that. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? I find people do tend to work best with a discount. They move faster with discounts. That's kind of how my people tend to work, or like some sort of like time period promotion to stuff. But there are some people that do great with bonuses too. So I think it kind of depends on your audience and what you do. I'd be curious to know if you find that there's one or the other that works better in general.
The truth of the matter is that discounts work, like they just work. Everybody
Yeah.
loves a good bargain. Is why we love holiday shopping. Is why we love Black Friday. But I think the thing about discounts is sometimes people tend to abuse it and then it becomes like too much, right?
Mhm.
So instead of people to buy, they're just waiting for the next discount. And then if you're not careful, you start having like a negative impact on your business, right? So maybe you now do so many discounts and your business is running at a loss, but people don't see it. So what I started doing was so there are times where I give a discount, but I always like to anchor it to something. So you don't feel like you can just wake up and get a discount. It's like, okay, because it's your birthday, here is a discount. Or
Mm.
like the last one I gave, I'm like, because it's the first time we're doing this, you get a discount. But then I started thinking about using discounts strategically. Okay, so I told you I was doing a membership thing, right? So what I did was you can pay monthly, but if you choose the quarterly option, you get a discount. And the reason was I wanted people to do the quarterly because I feel like the longer you stay, the more results you can get, right? So I feel like discounts are good, they're great, but being able to leverage them in a way where you achieve your goals and your business doesn't run at a loss, then that's fantastic. But then on the other hand, doing the offers thing, that's the bonus. I think that that's another just another really good one. So I've just tried both of them. Sometimes I look at the people and I'm like, okay, I think these people a discount will be better for them. And there are times where I don't just want to do a discount and I'm like, okay, let's look for what bonus can we put that will make these people say, okay, I want this now. So when I start thinking in that way, it usually gives me creative ideas. I think like that's why I like it because it's like now you don't have the easy way out, no discount. What else can you do? And it sometimes it just brings out really you come up with some really interesting things that you may never have thought about. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad to hear that you think the same, that you'll find the same thing with like the discount is we all like to get a deal. That's what it is at the end of the day. We all just like to feel special and that we got a special price and all those things. But like I said, sometimes bonuses work really and sometimes I'll play with both too. Like, oh, if you sign up in this period of time, you get a discount, but also there's a bonus and or a bonus for a certain period of time too, right? Like if you sign up in 48 hours, you get the bonus. And after that, it's still the good price, but no longer the bonus, so that just have fun, play with things. We're both experimenters. So try different things and see what sticks with you and your audience and what you like most.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you did this in 2 weeks, 4 emails, and I'm wondering, you brought in some level of urgency because you put in like time frame to it. But were there other things you think that you did that also helped move the needle in terms of getting people to actually take up the offer, even though they had just taken it not so long ago, making people to go ahead and say, do you know what? Even though it's next year, I'll book now because that's a serious commitment right there from the perspective of the customer in the sense that, okay, what if something happens down? Okay, maybe it's a recurring thing. You said it was a recurring thing, so they will probably need it. Okay, I think that there might be uncertain things in the sense that I might want to try somebody else or I might want to do something, but then we are gotten to this place where I'm able to lock you in ahead of the next year, right? So I'm just wondering, were there any special things aside like the offer that you added in the emails that made these people say, do you know what? I'm doing another year.
I think if anything, I highlighted some of the things that they do a little bit differently than maybe other services would offer. So it was like if whatever different perks that they have in their and how they run things, right? So hitting on some of the stereotypes of just like accounting firms, right? Like if you're thinking of like H&R Block or one of those, right? They're not very personal. So they don't really know you. They don't really know your stuff. Yeah, they might be cheaper, but like how often are they going to make mistakes or do things like do they understand small business? Do they understand your small business? So I think those were some of the things I really hit on was what made this particular agency special to them, right? And what's kind of cool is a lot of these people already had the experience. So they kind of already knew a lot of this. They really didn't need as much of that. If they were already thinking of going somewhere else, they probably wouldn't buy anyway. So it probably nothing we could really say was going to necessarily like change their mind on that. But like I said, I think most of these people were already kind of sold. And then it was really just highlighting what was good about this agency and what works really well and what sets them apart. I mean, honestly, that's probably the key to anything in email is that, and I'm sure you're seeing this too, is I'm noticing like I'm kind of just bored in my inbox with a lot of these emails because they all just, everyone's messaging is just starting to sound the same because I think a lot of people are using ChatGPT. But they're also, using the same coaches to teach them stuff and things like this too. And like, I'm like, all this messaging just, it sounds like I can read through it all. Like, literally, my husband showed me a post the other day. I was like, did ChatGPT write this? And he's like, yeah. Like, I can tell. I can just, there's certain words, right? Your audience can tell too. So it's like, if you just stand on who you are and what sets you apart and how you do things and how you want to treat people and or I'm assuming you're in a service-based business, but even your product, you could use the same thing, right? Like why your product, right? Why your candle? Why not another candle? Whatever it is. That's what's really going to set you apart and make people want to buy from you more than trying to find this like perfect messaging or some sort of formula that everyone else is using. Because again, we all are catching on when it starts to sound the same. We have to remember our audiences are smart and they know things. So really it's about being yourself and owning that and showing people you're the right choice for them.
I like how you just ended it by saying be yourself and owning that, even if maybe you're learning from the same coach, the minute you infuse yourself into your emails, it's going to sound different. Your experiences are different, they're unique to you. Your life stories are way different. Your, I mean, everything, once you bring yourself into the equation, there's just this difference. And so being yourself is something that is key. And I feel like people need to learn how to be a bit more vulnerable in their emails. So we're not saying tell us your deep dark secrets and all of that. We'll just bring you I mean, we signed up because of you and your expertise. So bring you to the email, bring you to
Yeah.
what it is that you're doing, right? And it also helps to build community because the people now feel like they know you more. So I really like how you just ended that statement with that. Now, for this sequence, I'm thinking, do you remember the kind of call to actions that you used in terms of getting people to book? So was it like a book a call, reply with a keyword, or were they going straight to like a checkout?
I think in this situation, we were sending them straight to a checkout, and had like a form or maybe even just a put in your information and buy kind of thing, like a sales page. I think we just did that in this particular situation because of the type of business she had. And that, again, they were really warm audience. They didn't really need necessarily a call or anything like that. But I would say if you're doing this and you have an audience that is less warm or hasn't bought from you before or isn't buying into, your offer yet, and they may need that touch point of a call or even a conversation, saying a word, replying with a word. Those I have seen that popping up in emails a little bit more too, which I think is a good idea, especially if it's somebody who's like literally never worked with you before, because they, often we do just want to feel like we know there's another human out there. Like I always say, I like to be wined and dined. You know what I mean? Like I want you to get put a little effort into getting my dollars if you're going to work with me. So sometimes people do just need that, and we have to remember too. There's different buyer types, right? Like there's going to be people who just are going to be like, yeah, let me just buy it. And then there's going to be people who are going to be like me and need the wine and the dining.
Yeah, definitely different kinds of buyers that we have out there. That's very important. So I'm just thinking, in terms of like your tech stack for executing this, what and what were you using?
So we really just did it within her email service provider with the emails. And then I think buying was either through, it might have been through Squarespace, the sign up, but honestly, you can use whatever as far as your sign up. You can use Thrivecart, you can use anything. But yeah, I think in that particular one, we were just really just using the email provider. And then I can't remember exactly where they were signing up, or they might have been a special system like for accountants and bookkeepers too. But essentially, you can use whatever it is that you use. I don't think that the tech necessarily makes a huge difference unless your tech is like ancient and it's just not working correctly. Like that's a whole nother story. But so do double check that because I have seen that before. But like as long as you have, tech that works, I think anything can work in this situation.
Yep, definitely. So did you see or discover any unexpected surprises, insights while running this campaign?
Honestly, I was I'll be honest, I was a little surprised that it did so well. I knew it probably would, but you never know, right? You do these things, you're like, I don't know what's gonna happen here. And I was honestly kind of surprised how many people were just like, yeah, let's do it. And how it felt so easy. You know what I mean? And like whenever something feels so easy, you're like, that can't be right. Because we've been trained like hard work. You have to do hard work in order to get there. So I think that was probably the biggest surprise to me was just like I was like, oh well, shoot. How come we're not doing more of this in our businesses? Because it really is that easy and it feels fake.
I mean, this is serious retention stuff right there because just think about it. You weren't paying to acquire new users. You weren't going out there to find new customers. You didn't have to post like a lot of Instagram threads or whatever. You were just like within the community you had built is like, raise your hand if you like to work with me again next year. And people were like, see me here, I'm here, book me, I'm down. And it was like, okay. I mean, it's so beautiful. And I'm just thinking, like, if you had to do this again, is there anything you would do differently?
Honestly, I'll say no is the short answer, but I will say the longer answer is probably have done it sooner. You know what I mean? Like that would be the big one is like, I wish we'd just done it a year or two before. And what's cool is you can just, again, set it up to just constantly run in the background every time you have somebody go through a system like this and cha-ching, right?
And those credit alerts just keep coming, and it's like, okay, okay. It feels good. So many people struggle with this particular thing. I mean, this looks so easy. I'm sure people are going to go look into their email marketing and see, people they can retain, people they can try this kind of sequence on. that kind of thing. But I'm just wondering, like people struggle with converting subscribers into paying customers. So what are your top tips for moving people from free to paid?
That's a great question. I think what people often overlook is, well, lots of things, but I think overall we tend to think, okay, we've put them through a sequence, they didn't buy, so either they think they're never going to buy, right? Like, write them off, right? Or they kind of, because I guess that's the big theme right here is that I think people give up too soon when it comes to email, and email is such an interesting thing in that you may not see results immediately, right? And sometimes you will. Like this case example is a perfect one. But sometimes I've had people on my list for years that I didn't even know were on my email list who will come to me later and be like, oh, yeah, I've been on your email list for a million years. And I'm like, what? And they're buying way later than I ever anticipated. Or I have people too that like will tell me, oh yeah, I can't afford that offer right now. And I'm like, okay, no problem. And then a few weeks later, they'll buy it. You know what I mean? So it's just like sometimes I think it's one of these things that we tend to write off too soon. We think, okay, well, they went through this sequence. So what's the point? But if we continue to show up, people see that, right? And I notice this a lot, especially in my photography business. And I think in particular, wedding pros and or photographers tend to write this off, but also service providers do too, of like, when you continually show up in somebody's inbox consistently, and again, I get it. Occasionally you're going to miss a week here and there, whatever. It's going to happen. I'm not saying like, if you have to email constantly, but like if you are showing up relatively consistently in somebody's space, they notice that. And maybe they don't think it consciously, but subconsciously, they're seeing your name and they're going, wow, this person is really committed to what they do. And they probably are going to be more likely when they are looking for someone to help them with what you do, they are far more likely to go to you because they have seen you show up over and over again and they think of you as the expert. And this is true in anything, right? Like, but they also may refer you more too. Like when they have somebody who's like, oh, I need somebody for email or I'm looking for a wedding photographer or whatever it is, they're gonna be like, oh, you know what? I always see this person showing up, even if they haven't worked with you. And they're going to refer you because they're seeing you constantly. And again, this might be a subconscious thing, but I used to give up on email too soon. And I think that's what most people are doing is they're not seeing anything. And so they just assume it's not working. But I think with especially email, that is almost never the case.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely can see how that happens. But yeah, I think I really like how you put this. Now, I'm just wondering, in terms of this particular campaign, we saw $14,000 in result. Were there other things you counted as results, aside the fact that you were able to, have this campaign give you what it is you wanted, which was people booking again?
That's a really interesting point you bring up. So I'm not on the like booking side of that business. So it's possible that that actually did bring in more in that. What's interesting is when you run any kind of campaign or launch or anything like this. Like I just ran a birthday promotion last month and I booked two services I wasn't even talking about, and they were like my high-end services because I was having conversations out there and I was talking about my offers. So people were coming to me more, right? And so I imagine in this case, there were probably people that booked bigger packages that weren't on my radar for that, who may have come in from that because they enjoyed their experience so much and they probably just booked it behind the scenes. But I will say when the only thing I did different with the money count, when I counted that 14, I like to say I like secured 14,000 because some of them were payment plans. So it wasn't like she had 14,000 sitting in her bank account the next day. It was more that like a couple of them were payment plans that were going over time was going to equate to a full package. And I did count the total of what the entire project would be. So, just to be completely transparent, it wasn't like trying to say, and then of course I didn't take out expenses or anything like that if there are any for on her end, for paying her team or anything like that. This was just a gross sum that she made. I always like to be conscientious about that because I find that there's a lot of coaches in particular, not always, but there's quite a lot that tend to just be like, oh, I made $14,000 cash. And then they'll say, oh, but it wasn't after expenses. And I'm like, then that's not cash, So this was the total amount that would come in from all the people that booked during that 2-week period.
I really love the transparency because for me, it's more of the sense that people see a lot of people. So I think I've been privileged to talk with a lot of people who are just starting training people to learn email marketing. So not necessarily business owners, but people who want to offer it as a service. And sometimes they see all these things out there and it's like so much pressure on them. It's like, when am I going to get there? Am I doing things right? Which is why I always like to say for context. Because sometimes I tell people that, okay, this person made this amount, but you don't know what they have behind the scenes. I'm not saying don't aspire to do like big things, but you can't start killing yourself because you feel like this person did this and you haven't been able to do it yet. So therefore, it's like you don't know what you're doing, right? And that's why I always like to like just say, oh, for context, that kind of thing. But yeah, so I appreciate the transparency. I feel like some people will sleep better tonight knowing that, they're on track to where it is that they want to be. Now, if you're to bust one email marketing myth, if there's any email marketing myth you would want to bust, right? Which one would it be?
Hmm. Okay, well, there's one I already kind of mentioned was the 2% rule that you'll hear people say, like you'll only sell to 2% of your list. That's one I cannot stand. I've broken that rule so many times. To tell a different one, the other one that drives me crazy that I hear out there from a lot of, again, gurus out there who will tell you things. I did quotes in case you're not, you're just listening in. But the gurus out there will sometimes tell you, oh, before you launch, make sure you have 500 or 1,000 people or whatever number of people on your list before you launch. And I think that is literally the worst advice out there. And, you can disagree with me if you want to, that's fine. But I think it is so terrible because I literally sold to a list $14,000 to a list of under 100 people. Like, imagine if I waited till we had 500 clients, but then you'd have 100 of those clients that probably wouldn't be interested anymore because it took me 3 more months or even a year to get that many on my list. Like I said, there's just rules out there, or quote unquote rules, I should say, that are just absurd to me. And I feel like the other thing with that, having a minimum number of people before you do anything. One, it doesn't allow you to practice your messaging and what's working and testing things. And two, then you're just growing a list to grow a list, and you're trying to get anyone and their brother on your email list. And then of course, they're not buying because they're not your ideal client. So it's like, don't get me started. You already did get me started, but essentially that's my problem with it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I've seen this being talked about. There was a time I used to feel like, I mean, if my list is small, how am I going to get the results? So then I now like started having context to it. So some people would say, so at the point I will now be like, okay, it's not necessarily just about the list, but the offer too. And I'm talking in terms of like the money part. So I was telling somebody one time, I'm like, two people have a list of 100 subscribers, but one person is selling a $5 product and the other person is selling a $500 product. If three people buy, the revenue generated from the list can never be the same, right? So sometimes it's like, okay, if you're doing the normal maths we would do, and you're using these conversion rates, this is the target number of people you should be looking at. So I feel like that's also like where some of these kind of things come into. But I mean, with experience, you just get shocked because you see somebody say, oh, I had 29 subscribers and I made this amount. And it's like, okay, it wasn't even up to 100. It was just 9 people. And so I think that's like the beauty of email marketing, that once you start doing it right, irrespective of the number, you can actually start seeing results. Then, I mean, we all want to have like a bigger list, but in this season, or I'm learning to prioritize quality more than quantity. I feel like quantity comes with like the whole bragging rights. There are some things you won't be allowed to do if you don't have like a particular number of subscribers, all those kind of things. Well, yeah, yeah. I think I can relate to the both sides because I've experienced them both. But definitely, you don't need 500 people. You don't. You may not even need 100 people, but please do keep growing your list.
Yeah, exactly. Like launch to the small list. Like I've literally sold to 40 people on a list. You know what I mean? And like I've sold more than half the spots I wanted to, so it's like that was almost 50% conversion rate because I had the specific people, the specifically right people on the list. And so I think that what you're saying is exactly right, that a lot of these people with giant lists need these numbers because they are such giant lists. But you know what else? They don't clean their lists either, a lot of these people. And if they did, they would also see better results. So that's a whole nother podcast episode.
Definitely, definitely. And now you just mentioned something that I have to ask. So you saw a 50% conversion rate. I always feel like we calculate conversion rates differently, right? So I feel like the way this person calculates might be different from how this person. So people will be like, "Oh, I had this and I had that," and the first thing that usually comes to my mind is, "How did you calculate it?" That kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I'd just love to know, like, how do you calculate conversion rates?
That's a great question and a very valid point because you're right. Everyone does do things slightly different. Well, it depends also what I'm doing, but in this particular situation, it's not quite 50%. I kind of just estimated in my head. I'm not a math person. That is not my strength, but I tend to look at how many people are on the list that I'm pitching, selling, promoting to. And then I'll look at how many on that list buy. And that's usually what I look at for my conversion rate. Now, that's a little bit generic in that, yeah, they could be buying for different reasons. They could be buying because they saw an Instagram post or a friend told them, or there's so many different ways. So it's not a perfect science in my world, but obviously, if you're more of a math person, you probably are laughing at me right now and you're like, girl, you're so wrong. But that's kind of my rough math for my non mathematic brain.
Well, I'm definitely not laughing because I always think about this thing because this is one method I know for calculating conversion rate. Then another thing I know people do is almost like how they calculate click-through rates. So it's more like out of the people who saw the email, how many people took action. And so that's what they want to use as like the conversion rate, which is why like I always like to ask people, okay, so how do you calculate conversion rate, that kind
Yeah,
of
and
thing.
taking action or, like, clicking it isn't necessarily converting either in my mind, but like I said, yeah, some people do, you there's a lot of weird information out here, y'all.
Now that brings me to the second thing. You just mentioned something. So tracking, right? So yes, someone can buy from an Instagram post or by clicking the link in your email. This is like to you personally, because I know like some people use like UTMs. Some softwares can actually tell you like, okay, this particular sale came from like the email. But how do you usually track who is coming from email and who is not?
Again, I'm not great at this. I'm working on getting better at it. I actually might be hiring a systems person to help me do a bunch of this stuff, but I'm not selling in the masses like a lot of people are. So I'm able to sometimes even have conversations directly with my people, and I can usually tell where they're coming from, just because I can see either they're replying, we're having a conversation, they're in my DMs, or I also see things like because that's what's so interesting about email. And people will tell me, I actually just saw this the other day. Somebody told me, like, my emails never convert. And I was like, okay, but I was like, you might be right that they're just not. And that's fine. But if I'm to play devil's advocate here, I would argue that you can't necessarily prove that people aren't seeing an email and then buying like later because they see a social post about it. And they might buy from the social post or buy after you shared something like that, but the email may have prepped them to like think about getting in it and may have like set, because what is the saying, you have to have like 7 to 11 touch points before you're going to buy something. I think it's way more than that these days, but the email could be a part of those 7 to 11 touch points, right? And so it sometimes, like any marketing, is a little tricky to exactly pinpoint, but like I said, I usually can tell by who's on my list, the kind of conversations I'm having. And I do tend to usually ask people in onboarding forms when they buy something of like, what made you decide to make this purchase? And usually that kind of helps me to understand what really pushed them to decide to buy.
As regards that onboarding form, what I just did was before checkout, like I have like some questions. So I'm just like, oh, where did you click this link from?
Yeah.
So just tell me where you click this link from. And I just use that to have an idea like, okay, so I'm like, oh, a podcast. That means that this has potential, that kind of thing. So that's like one way I use just to be able to, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's what I use to give me a sense of, okay, this what's working, this not working as well. This one seems to be performing better, and I just look at what I'm doing. So that's what like I do personally. So let's hear some more of your opinions. I received an email today and from somebody who's quite known in the industry. And she said something, and she talked about double opt-ins being a waste of your welcome sequence.
Hmm.
And I know that people have preached that double opt-in is important because, I mean, I also believe it's important because it helps you with a higher quality of people. But this all other point she made was like, okay, I see where you're coming from because I have thought about it. They have to go confirm before they can get like the first email. So what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, yeah, I know. I agree with you. I think there's a time and place for a double opt-in, and then I think that you don't always have to have one. I tend to not use them mainly because I'm pretty strategic about how I'm growing my list and where people are coming from. Like, I'm not really I mean, honestly, in some situations, I probably should use a double opt-in. That would actually eliminate some like I was in a it wasn't really a summit, but it was kind of like a summit with a bunch of freebies. And I got like the worst leads from that one. Honestly, like there was just a bunch of people that just like I think they used like fake email addresses or something to get stuff. But that one actually would have done well with a double opt-in. Do you know what I mean? Like that one, I probably should have used a double opt-in on it. I mean, I wouldn't. There was no way I would have known that, but that would actually be great for some of these really cold leads that are coming to you just from like big spaces where you're putting your email out or your email list out. That would make a lot of sense. Whereas if I'm just promoting my list in my own Instagram or in my own social channels or something like that, I personally don't necessarily need to have the double opt-in because they're choosing to opt in. It's pretty specific that they're choosing in that moment. But again, I think there is a time and place for a double opt-in. And I wouldn't ever say like, they're dumb, don't use them. But it has also held me back from getting on people's lists because I don't see the double opt-in come in until like weeks later. And so I'm like looking for this email. And then finally I'm like, oh, the double opt-in email. I actually saw a really cute double opt-in email today. So I think it also, that is part of it too, is that you should also customize that double opt-in because often it's just the basic thing from Kit or wherever it is, right? And you're just like, oh, but like when people customize them, I'm like, okay, that's cute. She cute.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I think one thing I really love about the double opt-in, I feel like if somebody really wants it, they'll go find it. Like
Yeah.
that's one thing about I believe about double opt-in. Yes, I understand like, oh, first email, all of that. But I always have this mindset is, and I think it's part of it is because of that's how I operate. If I'm signing up to this person's list, I have a reason I'm signing up. So if I really want to, I'll go to my inbox. Even when so some people will let you know that, oh, you have to like confirm to get the email, right? But even when they don't tell me, once I sign up, maybe because I'm an
Mm.
email person, I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'll go through it and see what's there, what's not there. And I'm like, okay, I need to confirm. No problem. Let's confirm. That kind of thing. I remember one time I missed out the double opt-in and I was looking for something. I was like, oh, okay, let's confirm. That kind of thing. So I also like think about it. So what are your thoughts on time to conversion as regards email marketing in terms of how long it takes for you to get a subscriber and get them to buy a product?
I think in most cases, I find this depends on so many things, but probably the biggest thing it depends on is really messaging overall is that you want to make sure your messaging is really hitting correctly in order to see a quicker conversion. But as far as like timeline on conversions, I find this can really greatly vary because it really depends what our offers are. And again, the messaging is really important. Is this even something people want? And are we messaging it in a way that they understand that it's something they need and really desire? But if you're selling a really low ticket thing, you don't need as many touch points, I would argue, because people don't, they're much more willing to spend $27 than, $2,700. But if we're talking a big sale or we're talking a big number, sometimes those are easy too, depending, again, it always kind of comes back to the messaging, right? Like if you have really good messaging and really strong outcome for people, some people are willing to just drop like immediate money on things. And then there's a whole nother thing too of like, what's your other marketing look like too? Where are they coming from? So like you'll hear this from a lot of the, I've seen it on Instagram. I'm sure it happens on any platform, but like people go and binge a bunch of content on somebody's Instagram and then they'll just instantly buy a pretty expensive offer because they're sold, right? And that can and cannot work with email too. We can use the same principles. And so it really just, I wish I had a like, here is the mathematical like answer to this question. But the thing is what will work for one business won't work for another because we're all different businesses and we're all different offers. And there's so many different things that come into it that, again, I literally wish, like, people always ask me like, oh, can you do templates for launching? And I'm like, well, I can, but if you want them to work, we kind of need to make it specific to you and your business and your offer. Whereas, templates have a time and place, but the same template won't work for every single person.
Yep. Definitely.
Sorry, y'all. I wish I had I'd like literal.
I really like the fact that we are able to create context in everything that we're saying, because the truth of the matter is the way it might work for you will be different from the way it might work for me, which is why, like with email marketing, there's a whole lot of personalization. And it's not just in the first name, but in different aspects of it, right? Which is something that I really love. Now, in your business today, what would you say is the role of email marketing? So let's say you were giving email marketing a job description in your business. What would that job description be?
Oh, that's a great one. I'm okay. What would I call email? I like to think of it as kind of my business partner in a way, honestly. To me, it's this like magical little thing that can just work while I am doing other things. Like it literally sits there and does, I can set it up one time and it does work for me. And so I do like to think of it as like my little business partner. Like she's just busy, you know what I mean? And I can go make cookies and she can sell stuff for me. It's great.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think that that's a good one, right? Just
Yeah,
she's just doing the stuff while you're doing the other stuff.
exactly.
All right, this has been such an interesting conversation today. And I want our listeners to know where they can find you. I know you're on Thread, you're on Instagram, but where can we find you? How can we find you? How can we connect with you?
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. I love chatting with you. You have such a cool brain. I love the way it works, especially around email. I love nerding out over email. So I'm so glad we can do this. So if you want to connect with me, I do have a freebie I gave you, which is 10 ways to unboring your emails. So basically, I'll show you how to just they're super simple little tweaks. You're going to be like, how did I not think of that? And maybe some of them you have thought of, but I'm going to guess most you haven't. And it's just like a simple doc. It'll show you exactly how to write better emails and faster, and it's going to help you so much. So you can grab that. I'm sure the link will be here for you. And then if you want to, that'll get you on my email list. So that way you can find out all my stuff about Spain and my dogs and all the crazy things I do in my life and more about email, of course. But I basically live on Instagram, so you can connect with me there. I'm at Mrs.Vondy, V as in Victor. And yes, I'm also unhinged on Threads. So feel free to find me there as well.
You will definitely find her there. For every time or almost every time I open the Thread app, I know the people whose threads I always see because they are always saying something.
That's
So you
me.
find that. Now you have this awesome email club membership, which I really admire. I think one of the things I really love about it is the results you've helped people, to be able to achieve over time. So tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, I would love to. So I started a membership about 3 years ago now. I took a course on email. I didn't even get into this part of my story, but I took a course on email in like 2018 and I did not see any results. It was like the worst course. It was from one of the celebrity entrepreneurs out there. And it literally taught me you need a freebie and grow your email list. Like that was kind of it. There was literally no strategy. I didn't know what to say in the freaking emails I was supposed to send after. So I was like, I'd been dreaming up this idea of, and so I created a membership to basically help you know what to say in your emails. I give you prompts every month. There's also email templates in there too. So like you can be like, I don't know what to say, go pull a template and they're great. I think our templates are very different from most email templates out there. I haven't like looked at every single template out there, but most that I see, because they're not just emails I wrote. I don't just take like something I wrote and be like, here, send this to your audience. It wouldn't make sense. It's not in your voice. We actually show you how to put your brand voice into your template so that way it is your email, not just mine that like I wrote, and you now have to figure out how to make it your own. So we have those. And then we also have strategy calls every month. So if you're just stuck, I can help you walk through exactly how to strategize, what to say. If you're stuck on what to say, I can help you figure that out. We can map it out. And there's also workshops to help you do all that. So if you don't like live calls, you can figure it out on your own, go learn at your own pace. It's a really cool place. And I just love it. It's my favorite place to be.
And I really love that for you. I mean, I do know that I have seen you talk about like some of the things that happen in there, and they seem to be having a whole lot of fun, which is something that I advocate for. I mean, you're doing it, and I think it's something you said you want email marketing to be the most fun part of their business here. So I
Yeah.
feel like you're really, fulfilling on that promise because I do see some of the responses that you share. So that's super awesome. So you all go and connect with the email queen. I will be adding all the links for you in the show notes, from Instagram, threads to her website, and of course, how you can join her email list and join the membership. This has been such an interesting conversation. I can't wait for it to go live anyways. But this has been super great. Till next time, everybody, this is still Email Marketing Experiments. So think it, test it, and don't forget to share it. Thank you so much, Shannon, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. This has been amazing.
You're welcome. You're welcome.